Well, welcome to Game Dev Behind the Scenes. Sounds like we got a little bit of feedback going there, but yeah, my camera's not on. We're batting 1,000. Well, there I am at least. All right, so welcome to the. Sorry, I got to figure out how to mute that. Let me try. Oh, well, I'll just talk through it. Anyway, welcome to Game Dev Behind the Scenes here with Golden Character Spotlight. My name is Vale. I'm the founder of a new indie game development company, Golden Character Design. And with me today is Bentley HG, a freelance Unity developer and a 2D artist, currently providing artwork and graphic support for Golden Character Design, as well as Ryan Kurlish, former Duelist game developer, now turned mostly solo indie dev. So thank you guys both for joining me here.
Great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. So tonight topic is going to be inspiration behind the games. Basically, where do ideas come from? Just kind of want to talk about where we come up with different stuff. And hopefully, as these guys start us off, I can figure out this feedback issue so that I'm not hearing myself delayed. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in if you're ready to have us to start talking about things and give you some tech support time. Deal with some tech diffs. Sure. All right. So, inspiration for making games. I guess to start with, I play a lot of games, and sometimes that's something I have to, you have to balance out, like time spent uh, finding inspiration in other games versus actually, making sure that you're not spending too much time doing that and uh, making games, doing creative work instead of just uh, being, a player of games. Uh, but I always find that that's how, you're seeing what's working, what's not working, playing things critically and kind of uh, taking inspiration from people who are doing things you want to be doing, and uh, at the same time knowing where you would do things maybe differently, and then trying to take that back to your own your own work, your own games, and make something out of that. But I also, draw inspiration from all over, right? Like movies too, uh, books a lot of the time, and of course just day to day life. Like I try to make sure I'm uh, living life not just cloistered in my room, working on sitting behind a computer or something like that, so that I'm getting inspiration from real life experiences and giving myself material to draw from.
Yeah. I can add on to that. That's also a pretty common source of inspiration. I guess it's like a little bit derivative because you're being inspired from other sources. But uh, what I love to do personally is just really kind of critically analyze the games that I play, the games that I really love. What are the mechanics behind them? Like, why do I love them? So, for instance, like my favorite video game of all time is Final Fantasy Tactics, and I specifically love the class system in it. I love that. I love that it evokes a sense of theory crafting. I love that you can just start each run, and you're just like, okay, I starting with like these basic characters, and I'm just gonna like by the end of the game, I'm gonna have like a chemist throwing elixirs from the back line while gunning people down. Well, I'm gonna have like a dual wielding knight teleporting around, like killing people, and it's really cool. Just kind of making or not making, just kind of like breaking down like what makes this fun. I love build options, and I love theory crafting, and I love like being able to start from crap and then become a god by the end. And a lot of modern games do this, like roguelike deck builders, like Slay the Spire, even Balatro. Um, and I think that they've done it in such a way that like really kind of condenses it down to like 30-40 minute runs, which makes it a lot more accessible than like a 60-hour campaign from Final Fantasy Tactics. So things like that, like just a lot of the mechanics that I really like, I try to find ways to implement them uh, into the games that I make. Like maybe there's some sort of streamlined version of it. Um, maybe there's a way to combine genres with something that like typically doesn't have that type of thing. But yeah, that's just kind of adding on to
Yeah.
what Bentley mentioned.
Yeah.
If I were to, I want to jump in on Final Fantasy Tactics because that's a huge early inspiration for me as well, and I'm glad you brought that one up. And it's funny, like, I love the mechanics of Final Fantasy Tactics, but I'm not a theory crafter. Like, I don't get into the numbers. Like, I'm not that kind of stuff. Uh, like, I like it, but it's not what hooks me. But like that was one of the first games where I was like, I'm gonna draw every character from this game, and like got the Prima strategy guide, and was like, I'm gonna like just for the illustrations, and uh, uh,
Oh, amazing
that's an art
artists, yeah.
style that I still go back to, and just like uh, it's an art style that's not for everybody, but I think it's really unique and evocative, and so I love that, like where um, a game like that is doing so much right, both mechanically and in the presentation and the art, can be inspiring and to different people in different ways.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
one of the
absolutely.
things that
The character
I,
artist
I
of
love.
that game is fantastic. Like one of my favorites. Sorry if I'm like talking over you at any point, because I couldn't get the audio to work on the that guest star thing link you sent me. So I'm watching it through the stream. So there might be a delay. So sorry if I
Yeah,
interrupt you guys.
no problem. We've got definitely a different, I don't know, issue we'll have to figure out in the future. But I've got the opposite problem. Is I've got the audio working everywhere, so I'm hearing it like 3 times. But I did want to comment on kind of what you guys were talking about too. That you know what like mechanics and themes that work well in other games. One of the things that I love to do, like I hate the idea of copying another game and being the same thing. But one thing I really do when I'm coming thinking through ideas and concepts is I'm sort of like, what's the mechanic or the feature that I like the most out of, this group of games, and then I'll combine it with a feature that I like the most out of a different type of game, and then maybe a genre from a different game, and you pull from multiple things that you really enjoy the most from different sources to kind of come up with one unified. This is kind of my group of faves. I don't know, so that helps me a lot. Although I will say, I don't know, you guys know me well enough to know that I don't really have any problem coming up with ideas. That's not really where my problem lies. My problem lies in, now that I have all these ideas, how do I not do them all?
Yeah, yeah, no, I hear you. It's I have like a notepad open with like so many of my game ideas that like I'll just be like late at night, like working on one game, and then I'll just like, oh well, wouldn't it actually be like really cool if I like did this sort of this like action RPG where like all the different like spells are kind of auto casted, and then And a lot of times I have to like kind of convince myself out of it because then I just realize like, wait a second, this is Path of Exile. Like, okay, like I'm not gonna compete with them. But I totally get that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. At least for me. But I know some folks really struggle with trying to even come up with an idea in the first place. And I know that sometimes what they do, I guess it really depends on your motivation too. You know, for us, we really dig into our passions. I know Bentley, you and I have talked about like, you know, building for others, building for other people, and letting that passion to create for someone else sort of drive you. And I think that's very, very helpful when you have a lot of care about what it is you're building. It's a lot easier to stick with it, especially when it starts feeling like you're kind of bogging down. But you know, one thing that some people do if they're struggling for ideas is they just dig in and do research in the market to see what, you know, which genre is kind of the most successful or the least saturated, or there's things like that that people look into. But my worry with when you're doing it, that I mean, I guess if you're fully doing it for monetization purposes, that makes sense. But I think unless that's your goal, it's easier to stick with it and complete if you're doing it from a place of passion rather than monetization potential.
I was talking about this
Yeah,
earlier
yeah,
today with some
absolutely.
friends.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bentley. I did the
Oh,
thing
I
where
was gonna
I
say,
just
like where
interrupted you because I didn't know what you were talking about.
it's all good. Um, but you know, we are talking about, you know, where you're developing something because you know that's like uh, what people are going to buy versus something that you're passionate about. And I think that there are two valid ways to do it, but I think it's the difference between making art and making a product. And uh, you know, I suppose like, you know, I lean towards if you're not making art, then what's the point? But there's other people who are going to be like, if you're not making money, what's the point? So, and hopefully you can bring the two together and be successful. But that I find is quite difficult, right? If it was everybody would be doing it if you could.
Yeah, yeah, great point.
Yeah, I guess it kind of depends on like whether or not you want to make a living off of it, which is very hard. But like, you know, I see in the game development subreddits, so like the Unity ones, r/game dev, just like I'm subscribed to a lot of them, and I see probably the most common one posted is like a precision platformer with like a lot of movement mechanics and stuff, kind of Super Meat Boy ish. Um, and I see a lot of developers on Reddit make those types of games, and like to be fair, a lot of them look like really good. Like they look decent. They look like pretty marketable. But um, the market for those types of games is also really slim. But I guess if this is like a hobby, like who cares? Like it's something you're proud of making. It's something that was
Yeah.
like really enjoyable to do. Um, but yeah. I think everyone ideally would love to make their dream game and have that dream game also be a smash hit, but that's also super unlikely.
I Yep,
Sure, sure, of
I
course.
totally agree.
I just think though that um, there's another element. I mean, it's obviously a topic that it's a good one. A lot of people talk about, but you know, that balance between sort of your dream game and what's monetizable. You know, but I think people underestimate the value of a passion project. And what I mean by that is that a lot of the big ones that you've seen blow up, not all of them, because there's certainly different cases across the genre, you know, across all different genres, but one of the things I've noticed is that the games that people really pour into, like they kind of create them for someone else, and they're like, this is so important to me, not because I'm trying to make a fortune, but because I really want this to be special, and I'm really, I've got this focus, I've got this drive. Those types of games, I feel, seem to do better than the ones that people are just cranking out to try to hit numbers or to try to hit the right. I got to hit that certain launch date where the marketing's going to align, and the other games are not being released, and this is the genre with the fewest games being released at this point in time, all that kind of stuff. There's a point to all that. I get all that, but I just feel like in general, the quality games, the ones that people really gravitate towards and recommend and give good reviews on, are those passion projects.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. I think there's also there's also like um, I guess a lot of elements that go into like the passion projects that really soar. Where there's was like Stardew Valley, made by one person famously, and it took them 5 years. Those were like those are very intense 5 years. Like sometimes like 12-hour days, like all week, for months and months, and like obviously like the guy had to quit his job to be able to do that full time and stuff. But yeah, like even just something on the like as like a side project, something as just sort of a thing you do after your main gig to just like just because it's enjoyable because you're making something that you want to make. I think I think that goes a long way. Yeah.
I think you
Yeah.
mentioned something like important there is even if you're working on something that is not exactly a passion project, maybe something that you're making because as you say, sometimes there's a difference between doing it for a living and doing it for a passion, and you find yourself in a place where you're um, making something to so that you can make a living out of it. I think you always have to have something else that is a passion project, somewhere, like whether that's like you're doing a side project, like you say, or doing a jam, or like trying to learn a new skill in art or coding, or something technical. But making sure that there's something uh, in in your life that is pushing you, that is like keeping your fire lit, and then you can bring that fire back to the projects that are more day to day, and bring sometimes you can bring something special into that, and bring some of that fire into it, and make something that was just a day to day thing, get some of that special fire to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're
Yeah.
making
Thanks for the
the
follow
game
there,
that
Chronicle.
you're working on, like the coloring one, was for your daughter, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm developed a pixel art coloring book essentially for my daughter. Like I've always loved pixel art because I'm a 80s kid who grew up playing NES and Super Nintendo, right? And so I've just got it for the nostalgia. And then uh, when my daughter started playing games on her phone, like she started play games with pixel art, and she's like, I love this. I want to be able to do this. And so um, we would start to work on those kinds of things together, where she'd be like, I want um, she'll basically give me the ideas, and then I'll draw it and say, is this right? and then and then she's also my tester. But yeah, that's the most fun I've had making a game, because I got to like share it with somebody who is super excited to play it, like every time a new build came out, every couple weeks, or once a month, whatever, there was somebody who was getting to play it right away and um, uh, getting satisfaction out of it. So yeah, that was great, really rewarding. But
So
also,
Ryan, I'm
that game is
curious. Oh,
has an audience of one.
I know what that's like. Sorry, Bentley. Yeah. So Ryan, I was curious to know. Oh boy. I was curious to know on. I know you do a lot of like shorter games. I know you really like pouring into and really polishing up games and kind of putting out a lot of short term as opposed to, spending years on a game. And that's got to be somewhat satisfying being able to, be able to work on more projects. But I'm curious, like, since we're talking about inspiration, do you kind of create whenever you have an idea, you just sort of, okay, let me dive into it right away? Or do you have like that? You mentioned a notebook. Do you have like a list of ideas? And when you get to that point where you're like, okay, I'm ready to make something, you pull from the list. What's sort of your game approach?
So, I mean, like normally it's just sort of when I'm done with work, I'm just at home and maybe like working on a game or even just like playing one myself. And usually, like what kind of inspires me or sparks me to kind of work on something is just I don't know, just having like a spark of inspiration, opening up Notepad, and then just writing down like all the different like ideas that I have in my head. Like, oh, okay, well, what if like the character can do this, but what if there's also power ups that can change the way that you do these abilities? And I try to map it out as much as possible. Because a lot of times I'll be mapping it out and just be like, oh, this game exists. It exists, and it is made
Yeah.
by a team of developers that are going to have like a lot more resources than me, and that's fine. Like I don't want to because I have devoted time to like year long projects and stuff, or just like kind of long term ones, but what inevitably happens with every single one, like as it approaches like the seventh or eighth month doing it, I lose steam. I see technical debt. I see kind of bugs that have been there from the very beginning that I don't quite know how to completely fix, and I just sort of like just get it kills my motivation every time I load up the project, and and then I start to question, oh, is this game even fun? And yeah, I totally know that feeling. So one of the things that I try to focus more on is game jam games, because these are games that you have to complete.
Hmm.
These are games that are like you have a few days to a week to this one we're in right now, 3 months. Um, and that kind of also leads me to another really big well of creativity, and that's the game jam restrictions. Because what is it? That quote, limitation breeds creativity. It's so true. Like when you have basically an open slate to say, hey, make a fun game, and there's no restrictions. Make it original and just have at it. Where do you start? It's so hard to like even begin to come up with an idea with that. But if you get like a theme that's just like the floor is lava, or life between two worlds, or just like really kind of evocative ideas that make you immediately start thinking like, oh, well, what if there's a mechanic where you can swap between light and shadow realms, and like you kind of use this to solve different puzzles and stuff like that. Um, that that has been like a really huge inspiration for a lot of ideas. Just having restrictions or a theme that you have to adhere
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, it's hard for me not to jump on board with that train of thought since my first Steam game is straight from one of our game jams. That's where it was born. So definitely hear that. And it was funny you were talking about the you were talking about the creating a game and then or an idea and then you kind of start it and realize, wait a minute, this exists. I actually was developing. I play games with my daughter a lot, and there's some board games that we love playing. And one of the ones that we play is Carcassonne. I'm sure some folks are familiar with that one, but it a good little game, and I was like, it's cool. I'm going to build it on the computer, have a digital version of Carcassonne so that we can play it anytime, from across the country. And so I started developing the game, and it was coming along pretty nice, and was pretty excited about it. And then found out that it already exists online on a free site. You can go on and play it. And so I went and checked it out, and it was better than what I was doing. And I'm like, what am I doing? It was a good
It's always
learning
the
lesson,
case.
at least, right?
I can, yeah,
Yeah,
I've
I
definitely
had
had that
a kind of a
experience
similar
a
idea
couple of
with
times at least.
but
Bentley, I think you're mute. You might be
sorry.
muted. We didn't catch that. Oh,
I did the same. All right,
oh,
Bentley,
there
go
we go.
ahead. Sorry, I did that thing again.
No, am I still, am I coming through now? No, I had to do a headphone switch, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought I
you are.
missed that.
Yeah.
I'm coming through. Okay. I was just jumping in on Vale's thing where I've had that experience a couple of times too, where you're making something and then you realize somebody else has done it and done it better. It's pretty demoralizing. But you just keep going, right?
For sure. Hey,
Yeah, there was
apologies.
specifically with the board game reference that you said. There was a game that I played, I think like a month ago, called like Force of Command. It's like this really fun, like little tactical, like 1v1 deck building board game. And I was just like, man, this would really like this would slap as like an online game. And then it's just like, oh, there's like a ton of games that are just like that. They have like maybe like different mechanics, but like they also have the advantage of being online, and they have like, oh, well, we could just do constant updates, and now there's like 70 new cards to add to this deck and stuff. So it's just like, shit, what am I doing here? New idea.
Yeah, I mean that's the trick. How do you take what is so enjoyable that you see in other places and improve on it? Because there's no point in doing something that's been done and not making it better, you know? So that's definitely the challenge.
Yeah, I will say one other thing, which I don't know if it's a controversial statement, but a lot of my ideas come from like when I'm like at night, like I'm done like working, I can like just smoke a bowl of weed, and then it's just, ooh man, I'm like, ooh, like the ideas are flowing. I'm like, oh yeah, like that wouldn't it be like so sick if you had like cars that had like swords coming out of them, and then they could like have a rich dialogue system with like branching pathways and a romance thing with the cars. I don't know. It's just it's dumb, but like there's of a lot of interesting ideas that I've had with that.
For sure, for sure. So do you have do you
Yeah,
have
I love that. I would do the same if I.
do you have some ideas, Bentley, on the back burner? Do you have some that you're looking forward to kind of trying out?
I think I'm similar to both of you guys, where I have that, the metaphorical notebook. Mine's just like a Google Drive document where I just log, a bunch of, ideas as they come or whatever, right? Um, but I'm with Brian. Like uh, in terms of trying to just get back to focusing on game jams, do things that are like 3 month projects at maximum, kind of. I think looking back over the past 10 years or whatever, me making games off and on, I just like sunk so much time into these like passion projects that like you said, you work on for a year and then you realize like I don't have the resources to do this in a way that is going to do it justice, or somebody else has done it better. Um, and so it's helped me learn, it's helped me grow, it's gotten me skills that have helped me get jobs and things like that. But it would be way better for a portfolio to have uh, a finished game that was small and polished. That presents way better than a 10% finished big game you spent a year on.
Well, you're talking to the king of polish right here, right now, Mr. Ryan.
That's right. That's he's really sold me on. That's the way
I
to
do
do it,
love
man.
some
They just get
polish.
that vertical slice that presents well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think.
There's something about it. It's like so much more enjoyable to work on a game if it immediately feels and looks good to play. Like I don't necessarily subscribe to like the oh you should use programmer art, just use like yeah just stupid little circles and stuff. Um, isn't it like I don't know, man? Like I guess you can to the prototype if you're like for sure like just gonna test out to see if the mechanics are fun. But like if it's something that you're gonna make like for a game jam or something like that, uh, why not? Why not just just make it look good and then like as you start playing through, it's just like it feels good. It feels good to work on.
Yeah, I know
What's up,
it's.
Jason?
Yeah, hey, thanks for the follow there, those Coles. Just yeah, Ryan. I know this is slightly off topic, of inspiration, but just to kind of feed off of what you were saying there, like I agree with you. Like you're so much better than I am at polishing these games for sure. I've still got things to learn from you, but one thing that I have a hard time doing is I see all these approaches where you kind of start off with blocks and start off with just placeholders and so forth, and you build and get all the mechanics worked out and you wait till the end to really work out. I can't do that. I'm like, I gotta see it. I gotta see and experience that animation or that whatever it is, the graphic, or so I'm always focused on detail the moment I'm putting it in the game, which might not be the smartest approach, but it's that instant satisfaction. You like to see it the way you imagine it.
Totally agreed.
It's cool.
I think that gray boxing approach, that programmer art approach, can be really helpful if you are already, if you're part of a team where you have resources and things like that. But I think all of us are in a similar boat where it's either just you're solo deving, or you're working with like a very small group of people. And in those situations, I think you're way better off going the Ryan way. Polish something up at minimum. If you were going to come away with one screenshot or one piece of artwork or one mechanic that is going to present really well and uh, go into your portfolio, and maybe get you that next gig.
Yeah, yeah, good points. Cool.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, for those of you watching, if you have any questions for any of us or just comments about, inspiration, where you get inspiration, if you want to tack on, we'd love to hear from you as well. Just throwing that out there real quick. Appreciate you being here. So, yeah, that I touched on this earlier, but for me, when it comes to inspiration on the games, it's almost like I have to force myself to shut off the ideas um, because I guess I'm blessed in that sense. I don't know if that comes from more of a game designer background where I'm constantly coming up with ideas. I mean, just since I spoke to you guys last, I've already added to the list. I, I've got like 19 on the list now. So, yeah.
Add it to the pile.
So, so that's what I need. I need to figure out how do you, you know, how do you stifle inspiration?
Well, don't. I mean, I don't think you should ever stifle it. I think you just have to note it, right? Like,
Right.
make sure that you get the core details down on paper
Yep.
somewhere, and maybe also it's an inspiration that gets kind of brought into whatever current project you're working on. So it's not something you save for later. You realize, oh, this actually feeds the project I'm working on now. I could bring it in. Then you're also maybe risking scope creep and other kinds of problems like that. But I think at minimum, you don't want to turn the muse away when she shows up. You want to make sure that you're listening and you take note of it.
Yeah. No, no, I agree. So, we got a question. Are you all solo devs? I can say, I won't speak for everybody, so I'll just say yes, I am.
And
Mostly, but and
I
occasionally in
am
teams of
now.
like two and three.
I did the thing again.
That's
Damn it.
that's okay, Ryan. Go ahead. You're up. It's all you, man.
Yeah.
Every time, like I'm on like a 5 second delay. Every time I look to see if like Bentley's like little microphone thing is popping up, and then I'm just like I don't see it. I jump in, and then it's just 5 seconds later. Um. Uh. uh so.
Solo
Yeah.
dev.
I
Yeah.
used to work on a team for a game called Duelist. It was moderately successful for a few years. Ran online and. Now I'm mostly solo. I have connected with some fine folks at IGDA to kind of cover some bases that I don't know how to do. Specifically, like music. I have never written a piece of music in my life, and I am very thankful to have Travis as a great resource to pull into. But yes, mostly solo.
Gotcha. Another great question. So, what would be your best advice? This is pretty broad, so I don't know how we narrow this down to a couple minutes, but what would be your best advice for a new dev? Who wants to jump in there on that?
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about jams. I think if I were to go back to starting over, is Brian watching to make sure he's not stepping on it? But uh, I would say get involved with your IGDA. I think that's really helpful. Like if you have a chapter or if you have a Discord that you could join, and then get involved in jams and just start making small scale projects and just start to like meeting people, working with people. That accelerates your opportunities and the way you will grow exponentially.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ryan. You wanted to add?
Sure. Yeah. So I agree with everything Bentley said. I think if you're new to an engine, the best way to get familiar with it is to basically just say like, okay, I want to make a character that moves around. So you YouTube and you find a tutorial. Brackeys is great for that if you're using Unity, and you just do this for every little thing. Oh, I want a combat system. Oh, I want a health system, and you can just slowly piecemeal together a game out of all these components and systems because that really is kind of what it is. And then once you learn the engine, for sure, just do game jams, do small stuff. Do not start your dream projects which I know everyone wants to do, and I know I've made that mistake. I feel like almost every game developer has made that mistake. And by the time like you're months into development of that game, you're gonna have learned so much, and you're gonna realize that all the stuff you started building at the start is crap, and you're much better, and you can iterate on it. I think I saw some advice that says something like, uh, "Wait till you've completed 10 small games before you start on one really large one," which I think is fair.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
that's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to tack on to what Ryan said, I think there's a couple things there. First, I definitely agree with the tutorials and just diving in and doing. Figure out what you want to accomplish, and then work until you can get it. That's sort of how I taught myself. And if you're on Unity, Code Monkey actually won the award for Unity for the best tutorials online for that. So that's another great resource. Um, so definitely recommend and agree with Ryan on that point. Now, with starting a new game, I'm gonna agree and disagree at the same time. I don't think there's anything wrong with starting a big game as long as you heard what Ryan just said, and that is a few months in, you're gonna realize that everything you did, you're gonna just want to start over anyway. So if you go into it kind of knowing that and saying, well, I just want to test the waters and play around and get started on it, knowing that I'm going to start all over, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You count that as one of your 10, you know? That's,
I see that, but like I want to also add that I think you learn more from making 3 small games than you do from making one large one. Especially if you're kind of crossing over different genres, different play styles, different mechanics. Um, I personally found it much more helpful to do the game jams, but like you said, like there is value to starting a big project. You definitely learn what technical debt is. You definitely learn that the shortcuts that you're doing to fix certain bugs are not going to really be sustainable, and that's good
yeah.
good information to have.
Yeah, I will say that one of the things that's actually helped me with my bad habit of trying to work on too many projects, sort of along the lines of what you were just saying, Ryan, is that because I'm trying to work on multiple projects simultaneously, I'm learning things that I can then translate into other projects. Because when you're working on one project, you tend to be very focused on certain mechanics and certain elements, and you're not diving into a whole lot of other stuff. But when you're doing multiple projects that cross completely different game types, you're learning new things on each one. And so what I've found is I'll do a session working on project 3, and have to teach myself something new and say, wait a minute, I could actually apply that to that first project I'm working on for this other issue, and I can kind of go back and adjust what I'm doing there. So that's actually one benefit to working on multiple projects at the same time and going through the whole learning curve of it all, I guess you could say.
Well, I want to ask you, Vale. So
Yeah.
you have like a notebook that you have like, I don't know, 10 to 20 ideas on that you just will come back to at another point. Um, how likely are you, like, let's say, I don't know, after you've written like your 20th, like, how likely are you to go back uh, to an idea like the, I don't know, maybe like the third or fourth idea when you're already at 20? Because I feel like a lot of times it's the strike when the iron's hot type of thing, where like you come up with an idea and like, yes, I want to run with it. Where it's like you see something that you came up with like weeks ago, and you ask yourself like, why didn't I start then?
I mean, that's a great question. To be honest, though, um, all the ideas that I've come up with so far, I mean, we'll see. Who knows how things are going to change and develop over time. But I'm still just as passionate about the first idea that I had as I am about the 20th idea that I had. So I still think they're all pretty cool, and I've changed my priorities on them. Like, all of a sudden I'll be like, yeah, that one I can put a little bit lower on the list for now, and let me focus on this one for a little while. Right now I'm just trying to pour myself into a couple to get released, and not try to spread myself too thin. But and we'll see. Maybe by the time I get these three or four released, that are getting closer, uh, you know, I'll be up to 30, and I'll have to reprioritize all over again.
Do what we got to do.
I'd say on that, like, your old, whether or not you ever go back to your old ideas in your notebook, I think I find that the good ideas have a pull to them, and they'll bring you to them. Like, there's certain concepts I have in that notebook where I'll find myself getting the itch. Like, I think I want to go back to working on that one. Like that one, that one, I is just calling to me. And some of them not so much. Some of them it's just like, I'm glad that I have that in the bank, but it's not. Uh, that's for if I'm like immortal. Someday I'll get to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just be out taking a walk, get fresh air, stretch my legs, take a walk. I try to work that in twice a day, and my mind will wander to one of the projects that I'm not even working on, one of those that are on the list, and I'll just start thinking of ideas for it and how do I want to develop that? How do I want it to look? And so I'll spend 15 minutes on my walk thinking about that game and kind of hashing out some thoughts on it, come back down, sit down, take a couple notes, and then get back into the one that I've got to focus on. And it keeps things fresh still for me, and enjoyable. And I don't know. What about you, Ryan? I mean, like, your how big is your notebook? Like, that you can pull from? Or are you always looking for that next new idea?
So, so I'll be honest. Like, I mean, yes, there are a lot of maybe fantastic high ideas that I've written down and like kept some tabs on. Uh, but a lot of times though, like I'll kind of come back to them a little bit later and just be like, yeah, there's reasons why that this wouldn't work, or this is maybe like already done by something else. Uh, there is like one specific idea that I've had in mind from like the very beginning of the game dev stuff, and that was sort of like to make a an AI driven tactics RPG. I don't know if you guys have played Final Fantasy 12, but they have like the Gambit system where you essentially program your team's actions. You'd be like, all right, when an ally's health
I'm
drops below
a huge fan of that
60%,
system.
cast cure. Um, yeah, yeah, I love that. Like, I love that system so much, and I wanted to try to, dream game would be to kind of make a whole game around that, to just kind of like make that as the centerpiece where you just build up an army, you equip them with like a lot of different like skills from different classes, and then you kind of customize their AI. I think that would be really fun. However, that is also a very significant undertaking programming wise. Like,
Yeah.
that is extremely systems heavy, and uh the probably one of the main reasons that is holding me back from starting that one is that I just kind of know from experience from other games that I've like started working on that, oh man, if I like kind of take shortcuts and like build up some technical debt, then like it's gonna bite me in the ass, like especially hard for this one. So I keep trying to like, wait a little bit, like, maybe I can learn some code architecture. Maybe I can learn some clean code techniques. Just doing little incremental things to get better before I feel like I'm ready. Maybe I won't ever feel like I'm ready for it, but it's something that I do have in my back burner.
Yeah, that's cool. So here's a question for you guys. Maybe this is a tough one, but I feel like this is a good question based on everything that we're all saying. Um, and I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, so if you don't have an answer, it's okay. But here's my question. So how do a bunch of indie developers with a whole bunch of ideas that we already know are going to take a lot of time and scope, and when you have all these ideas and even one single passion project could really tie you up and bog you down long term, how do you kind of get other people on board your idea, especially when they have ideas too? For example, if I come to you guys and I'm like, hey, I've got this great idea, you want to help me on this? You're like, well, that sounds cool, but I've got this idea, I'm working on this. And so we've got, I don't know, a million solo developers around the world all trying to work on a project. And I guess I'm just sort of wondering, how do we uh, how do we help each other out?
I mean, the blunt answer is pay people, right? Like,
Right.
that's the easiest way to get somebody to believe in you. But also, like people should, if you're asking people to work for you, I think it absolutely, I think in the game industry, especially like in, the kind of indie world and the jam kind of culture, you do a ton of free work. And so that is like paying people is important in a way to stand out weirdly. Um, but then also, the jam thing really helps with that too, where if somebody has the best idea, like when I was in Chicago, their IGDA, like we would all pitch concepts like in the room together, and we kind of coalesce around like one person's idea usually. Like that sounds like the strongest one, but it would only be like a 3 month project or a 1 month project, and so you knew that like in I got to come for the next jam, and my idea's got to be better, and it could be my turn, that kind of thing. So, but you don't have to wait for a 3 year development cycle. You're only waiting a month or two, and then you get another chance to bring people in.
Yeah, I agree with everything he said. Like the longer projects that I have done, I've turned to Fiverr, and I've spent probably like well over like $1,000 on like different like art assets and animations and stuff, and it turned out great. And they're for abandoned games, so it's all for naught. But it is a way for sure of getting people on your side. Um,
At the
but
very
as far
minimum,
as
you
like
supported
solo
an independent
developers,
artist.
sorry, go ahead. Say it again.
I was just going
I
to say, you
spoke over
say
you.
it's all for naught, but I'm just saying at minimum, you supported an independent artist, and that's important.
Oh, I hate independent artists. I want them all to starve. I'm the only one who matters in my games. Okay, but like when it comes to like solo developers and like because we all like know our way around Unity. Um, I find that like I haven't worked with other Unity developers yet. Simply because like I feel like there would be like a lot of stepping on each other's toes. So typically the kind of game jams and stuff that I work with, I like to find people who have different skills from me, like an artist or a musician, just so there is no stepping on each other's toes. Because there's also, what is it, like if one person has an inefficient coding style or something, it could really throw a wrench when you try to implement something on your end, but they've done something that's not scalable, or they've done something that just doesn't integrate well with the rest of the existing systems. So um, yeah, when it comes to like working with other like Unity developers, I feel like that kind of requires uh, like an actual like team structure. Like, hey, we got a project. Like, this is something that we can maybe like make money off of, like a small indie development team.
I said you can make it work. Like I agree most like 99%. I agree. Where like in small teams, it makes so much more sense to have everybody doing their own discipline and not stepping on each other's toes. Uh, but I'll just say for programming, like I've been lucky to work with other people who I was like friends with and had a good connection with, and so that made it easier to code together. But then also just source control, like Unity has built-in source control, and so that can the worst case scenario is you just say, I'm not taking any of that garbage code you put in, and it's not going to clog up your code.
All right, so I'll throw out one last question here when it comes to trying to stay on our topic of inspiration. Here's my thought: is um, when like have you guys ever run into kind of a decision making process as far as to when do you share your ideas? Do you try to get feedback right away on the concept? Like you pointed out earlier, Ryan, sometimes you come up with this idea and it's already out there. So is it good to get people giving you that feedback right away? Do you like to kind of do a prototype before you talk to people? Or are you sort of the put it all together and I'll show it when it's done?
So that's kind of a the curse of the game developer, is that when your friends find out that you're a game developer, that you're working on like this big game, and you want to show it to them, they'll play your game once, and then like maybe they'll have like issues with it. They're just like, oh man, like I didn't have fun on this level or whatever. And then you can just like come back to them a month later, like, hey, I actually revamped the game. I did all these like new things. Like, you should like try it out, let me know what you think. And they're like, oh yeah, 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 for sure. And then you never hear from them again. Like, that's happened so many times, like with friends and family. So it's tough. It's tough, like, to find like the people to play test your games, because that is really the most important thing. Like, iteration makes the best product. When you have people seeing your game early and they're trying it out, like, that's when you're gonna get like from like an early start, like, you're gonna know what's working and what's not. But yeah, again, it's super hard to find those people. But if they do exist, I guess IGDA is probably a really great resource for that. Um, but yeah, no, that's absolutely what should happen in an ideal world. But friends and family are not reliable for that.
I was gonna, yeah, agree there with like I've definitely done this similar things where I'm like really excited about a game and share it with friends and family, and like my wife is a casual gamer, and it's just like, oh yeah, like that idea sounds nice, but or I'll show it to like my gamer friends who they're used to playing AAA PS5 games, and they're like, uh, this little tech demo you showed me looks like garbage. Like, why? I'm used to like polished graphics, and so they can't see past that, right? So if I'm going to share something early, I always only share it now with other game developers because they can get it. Like, they get it. Like, they can see uh, past your programmer art if you're still just in the programmer art kind of phase. And also, I think they can more, like honestly tell you like this idea is too derivative, and tell you why, and you'll respect their opinion because they know what they're talking about. They're a fellow game dev. or they can look at it and say like, yeah, like I can see this working, and then I think that validation means a lot more than your um, your friends and family, your gamers who don't know what it takes to make games. So I show
Yeah.
friends and family late now, and I show my game dev friends early.
Oh, that all makes sense.
Yep, same.
Great thoughts, guys. Appreciate it all. So thank you guys both for joining here. I really appreciate you guys coming on board tonight and sharing your thoughts. And would love to have you back sometime if you're open to it. If there's anybody else watching, we would love to have you as part of the panel as well. If you want to reach out, there's a link on the About page. Just drop down there and under Be a Guest on Twitch, and there's a link that'll take you there. Also, these guys' links for both Bentley and Ryan, there are links for their pages if you want to check out their stuff on that page as well. Just check out the About. There's a links section there. And please do that as well. We want to try to support each other and grow the community. And on that note, on Friday and Saturday, we're also working to build and show people in the industry. On Fridays, we're doing a spotlight on artists and other contributors to game development. So if that's you and you'd like to have your work featured, we'd love to have you. Again, check out that About link. And then same thing on Saturdays for indie game developers. Let's show off your games and get the word out there. So please tell folks about the channel. We're fledgling here, but I think we've got a good community going already, and we'd love to help it grow. So spread the word, and we'll keep this ball rolling. Thank you all for joining us. Appreciate your comments and questions, and thank you Bentley and Ryan for being with us. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Vale, for making
Thank
this
you, Vale.
space
Yeah,
for people, especially in Vegas, like, having uh, this is a small community, and having you like give us all a way to connect and talk to each other. I really appreciate it.
appreciate that. All right. Well,
Yeah,
since
this
we
is very fun. Thanks for hosting it.
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. Thank you. Thank you. And since we are all about supporting other indie developers to end the feed instead of dropping into the void, I'm just going to go ahead and send us into another indie channel so that you can at least stop by for a moment, say hi, what have you. So, it didn't work. So we'll forget that plan again for tonight. It sometimes they block
Great
us.
end.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Apologize early on for the audio issues too, guys. Thanks for bearing with me. We'll get through it all. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great night. Thanks.
Good luck. Great to talk to y'all.
All right, see y'all.